today's topic is pancreas. As we know, so it is impossible to finish. So we will take time gradually and gradually. It probably in two classes we can finish. If you want, we can finish in two classes. Up to acute pancreatitis, we will learn today. Then next class probably 3 4 days. Up to Monday, I'm little busy. Tuesday or Wednesday, I can be able to take if you want. Okay. So let us come to anatomy first. Embryology. First, it is important to know from where pancreas develops. It is developed from a bud which is formed in the endodermal lining of the duodenum. Okay, so it is developed from the inner lining of the duodenum. Two buds were initially developed. One is ventral pancreatic bud, which lies slightly below and anterior, and dorsal pancreatic bud, which lies above. But with time, these two ducts gradually join with each other. Actually, ventral pancreatic bud comes dorsally to fuse with dorsal pancreatic bud, and the entire pancreatic structure formed as a single structure. Okay, so ventral pancreatic bud moves dorsally to join with the dorsal pancreatic bud to form a single structure. Actually, there are two ducts, duct of Whitsun, or which is the main pancreatic duct, which drains in the major papilla, and duct of Santorini, which drains in the minor papilla. You remember this: major papilla lies at a lower level than minor papilla. Minor papilla carries pancreatic juice, but the pancreatic juice is mostly taken through the duct of Whitsun into the major duodenal papilla. Okay, through the main duct in the major duodenal papilla. So it is important to remember that major papilla. It is also important for your MCQ. Major papilla lies at a lower level, at the level of L2, whereas minor papilla lies at the level of L1, L2 junction. Okay. And duct of Santorini is the minor duct which carries small amount of fluid from the body and neck region to the minor papilla. Now come to anatomy. It is a retort sepate. You all know it is a retort sepate organ. It lies mostly at the level of L2 and L1. It lies overlying L2 and a small portion lower part of the L1. There is a prolongation from the head, which is called uncinate process. Uncinate process lies slightly below and posterior to the portal, superior mesenteric and portal veins. Okay, so it lies just posterior to the portal vein, posterolateral to the left and posterior surface of the portal mesenteric vein or superior mesenteric vein or portal vein. Okay, you know the portal vein is formed by superior mesenteric vein and the anybody superior mesenteric vein and anybody how portal vein is formed? Splenic vein. Very good. Splenic vein and superior mesenteric vein. But remember, portal vein is always at the same line of superior mesenteric vein. Okay, it lies in the same line. At an angle, splenic vein joins with the superior mesenteric vein to form the portal vein. Okay. The body of the pancreas overlies left renal vein, aorta, psoas major muscle, and transverse mesocolon. All of them has importance. Just I am telling right now why these are important. I will be describing later. Okay, left renal vein, aorta, psoas major, and transverse mesocolon. And tail lies close to the lino-renal ligament, and splenic vessels are very close to the tail. So while ligating the splenic vessels, we have to be very careful about the tail of pancreas, because if you accidentally ligate the tail of pancreas or injure the tail of pancreas, there may be pancreatitis. So while doing splenectomy, we have to be careful about the tail of pancreas. Okay. Next, come to anatomy of ductal system. As I told, main duct is the duct of Whitson, which is major papilla, and minor papilla through minor papilla, accessory duct or duct of Saturninus. But remember, this duct of Whitson or major pancreatic duct, for now you remember it as a major pancreatic duct. Major pancreatic, which joins with the bile duct. You remember, it joins with the bile duct to reach as a single duct in the major duodenal papilla. Okay, so it joins with the bile duct. You all know it. Pancreatic duct joins with the bile duct and drains to the sphincter of Oddi. Sphincter of Oddi in the major duodenal papilla. Now come to blood supply. It is body and tail is mostly get their blood supply from splenic artery, which is a branch of anybody celiac artery. To know. Next is head part. Upper part of the head is mostly supplied by superior pancreaticoduodenal artery. It is derived from celiac artery. And now inferior part of the head of pancreas is derived blood supply from inferior pancreaticoduodenal artery, but it is a branch of superior mesenteric artery. So pancreas gets blood supply from both celiac and arteries of foregut and as well as arteries of midgut. It gets blood supply from the superior pancreaticoduodenal artery, which is a branch of celiac axis, and also from the inferior pancreaticoduodenal artery, which is a branch of superior mesenteric artery. Okay. Now same is applied for lymphatic. Lymphatic drainage is mostly to the celiac and superior mesenteric group of lymph nodes. Upper part drains into celiac group of lymph nodes, and lower part drains into superior mesenteric group of lymph nodes. Ultimately, both reach in the paraaortic group of lymph nodes. Nerve supply mostly from sympathetic and parasympathetic. Sympathetic nerve is splanchnic nerves. They are mostly responsible for carrying pain from the pancreas, and parasympathetic nerves are mostly vagus, and these are more responsible for secretions, secretory control. Now come to physiology, exocrine function. Let us come to, we all know pancreas has both exocrine, very important exocrine and endocrine function. Important exocrine function is more important. It releases about 1 to 2 point. It's very important for digestion, and it releases about 1 to 2 liters of juice, depending on the situation, if it is fasting or whether the person is fasting or taking frequent meals. Depending on that, any person can secrete 1 to 2 liters of pancreatic juice. The pancreatic juice contains almost 20 different types of enzymes, and it is obviously alkaline. The average pH of the pancreatic juice is 8.3. Now, the centroacina cells, these are the cells where enzymes are stored. You remember there are proteolytic these are trypsin and chymotrypsin. Amylolytic enzymes are amylase, and lipolytics are lipase and phospholipase A2. There are other enzymes like elastase that is responsible for breaking elastic tissues. Okay. Now remember, the most important thing is proteolytic enzymes, that means trypsin and chymotrypsin. These are secreted. These are stored as an inactive zymogen granule. If they are stored in active forms, what would have happened? It would have digested the pancreas. Okay, so it is never stored as active granules. It is always stored as an inactive zymogen granules. Okay, but amylolytic enzymes and lipolytic enzymes are stored as active forms. They are simply secreted in the system Now, regulation of secretion. This is important. How, as we all know, smell of food, actual intake of food, all of these actions actually increase pancreatic juice secretion. So these are secreted, pancreatic juice are secreted in phases. Cephalic phase, we all know, cephalic phase is actually a phase where smell of food, when you take smell of food, there will be secretion. There will be secretion of pancreatic juice. Gastric juice, when there is food in the stomach, release of gastric acid, release of secretin, which increases the pancreatic juice secretion. Mostly it is regulated by secretin. This phase, gastric phase, mostly there is release of secretin, and the secretin releases or enhances pancreatic juice secretion. Intestinal phase, when the food enters into the intestine, gastric chyme and food, mixture of gastric chyme and food enters into the duodenum. What happens? There is release of cholecystokinin, and it again releases enzyme and bicarbonate rich fluid to enter into the duodenum. Secretion of enzyme and bicarbonate rich fluid is very important, because all of you know gastric juice is very high in acid content. That juice, if comes to duodenum mucosa is not that protected like stomach. So the endocrine function. As you all know, it has got very important endocrine function. We mostly are bothered about insulin, which is released from the beta cell. And contrary to the popular belief, beta cell is distributed throughout the pancreas. It is not located mostly in the at the tail region. In the mostly found in the head and neck region. It is also found body and tail region, but mostly found in the head and neck region. As head and neck is the most bulky part of the pancreas. Okay. Now, alpha cell, which releases glucagon. Action of glucagon is to counteract action of insulin. So remember, in case of pancreatitis, both alpha cells and beta cells are damaged. So while administering insulin, you have to be very careful, because small amount of insulin may produce hypoglycemia. So you have to titrate the dose. You should not. Our estimated glucose we want to keep around 200, not around 120, 150, because lack of alpha cells, patient may develop hypoglycemia at any point of time. Okay. Delta cells are responsible for releasing somatostatin. Somatostatins are important. They regulate other. They mostly when somatostatins are released, this causes reduction of release of gastric enzymes. Okay, so main function of somatostatin is decrease in release of gastric enzymes and bicarbonate. When there is a good amount of pancreatic juice is secreted and the food is digested, food is mixed with the bicarbonates and pancreatic enzymes, then delta cells function and it releases somatostatin. And as a result of release of somatostatin, what happens? These secretions are regulated. Secretion of enzyme, secretion of this bicarbonate is regulated. Now come to congenital anomalies. There are three important congenital anomalies. One is pancreatic division. Here what happens? Ventral pancreatic bud is not fused, or failure to fuse of ventral pancreatic bud with the dorsal pancreatic bud. Body and tail is mostly affected, and neck region is usually not affected. So pancreatitis is the clinical feature due to pancreatic division, and Usually, the body and tail region is affected in pancreatitis because they are driven by smaller duct and they drain in the minor papilla. But body and as the head and neck region, an uncinate process drains through the wider duct of Whitson through the major papilla. There is usually no pancreatitis. So usually the pancreatitis is affected in the body and neck region as they are drained by minor papilla. Annular pancreas, again there is some erroneous rotation, erroneous fusion of ventral and dorsal pancreatic part, as a result of which this there is a constricting ring-like pancreas, which usually in the affects the second part of the duodenum. It usually what happens? Usually there is vomiting, duodenal obstruction. If you do X-ray, neonatal X-ray, or X-ray at childhood period, who is repeatedly vomiting, we will find there will be double bubble appearance. One bubble is for stomach, another bubble is for duodenum. So it is very common. It is not very common. Duodenal obstruction is very common with annular pain. And whenever we get this double bubble sign, we should check with ultrasonography or CT scan that can readily detect annular pancreas. Other causes which may result in this double bubble appearance is duodenal atresia. But duodenal atresia develops at early age, that means in the neonatal period. But whereas annular pancreas usually presented in the early childhood or at least not in the neonatal period. Ectopic pancreas, we all know about Meckel's diverticulum. Sometimes Meckel's diverticulitis develops due to presence of ectopic pancreatic tissue in the ectopic pancreatic tissue in the Meckel's diverticulum. Sometimes ectopic pancreatic tissue may be present in any part of the intestine, but most commonly seen in Meckel's diverticulum. Now, what is the treatment of annular pancreas? Annular pancreas is not divided. If you divide annular pancreas, there is a high chance of pancreatic fistula. So we don't divide annular pancreas. Usually, side to side duodeno-jejunostomy is done to relieve the obstruction. So constricting ring is present, but the content of upper part of the duodenum, content proximal to the duodenum, can be bypassed into the jejunum without any resection. Just side to side duodeno-jejunostomy, anastomosis with the first part of duodenum with the jejunum, loop of jejunum can easily manage. Now come to pancreatitis. There are different classifications, which the most common classification we use is the Merciless classification. That is acute pancreatitis and chronic pancreatitis. These are two distinct, sometimes there is overlap, but these are two distinct variations. Acute pancreatitis, always remember, acute pancreatitis is reversible, whereas chronic pancreatitis is irreversible. There is autodigestion. In acute pancreatitis, there is autodigestion of the gland due to inappropriate intracellular activation of the enzyme. That means initially, as you all know, the proteolytic enzymes are stored in the acinous cells as inactive granules, in zymogen granules. But due to some process, there is intracellular activation of this enzyme. And what happens? Normally, naturally, when there is intracellular activation, this will digest the cells, and acinar tissue, pancreatic tissue will be digested. When the cause is withdrawn, then gradually the pancreas reverts back to its original function, original anatomy and function. That's why it is reversible. But chronic pancreatitis is irreversible destruction of exocrine and endocrine function. And the anatomy of the pancreatic architecture is replaced by fibrous tissue. Okay, this is the basic difference. One subtype of chronic pancreatitis is a chronic obstructive variety, where there is obstruction of the ductal system by maybe worm, maybe stone, maybe any neoplasia, okay, stricture. The prognosis is better. The prognosis is better as if we can remove the cause, there will be if we remove the cause, then if we remove the cause, then the pancreatitis may revert. Okay. Now come to pancreatitis cause. Next classification is etiological classification. We classify pancreatitis according to the cause. Okay. Here we don't divide as acute or chronic because there are overlapping causes. Some causes which are responsible for acute pancreatitis may cause chronic pancreatitis, and some causes which are responsible for chronic pancreatitis may cause acute pancreatitis as well. So we just remember this mnemonic: M2 VI2. MVI we all know, multivitamin infusion. MVI only M2 V and I2. This mnemonic is helpful. Metabolic alcohol is the commonest cause of chronic pancreatitis. Hypertriglyceridemia, hypercalcemia, drugs like thiazide, like furosemide, like corticosteroids, and few anti-cancer drugs like azathioprine will be responsible for this toxicity, direct toxicity to the pancreas. Scorpion venom is also seen. Scorpion bite, there is of pancreatitis. It has been seen. Scorpion venom is also one of the cause of metabolic cause for pancreatitis, development of pancreatitis. And hereditary pancreatitis, probably some metabolic abnormalities there is responsible, which is the cause of this pancreatitis. Mechanical pancreatitis develops due to trauma. It can be developed due to stone. Stone is usually gallstone. These are small gallstone or sometimes sludge, sand-like particles, which comes from the gallbladder to the common bile duct, and ultimately it transiently obstructs the pancreatic ampulla of Vater or sphincter of Oddi, as a result of which there is increase of interpancreatic pressure and there is activation of the cellular enzymes. So, very important cause, probably the most common cause of acute pancreatitis is the gallstone pancreatitis. Trauma is mostly ERCP induced. If we damage the sphincter of Oddi or ampulla of Vater during sphincterotomy during ERCP, there is chance of pancreatitis. Obstruction due to tumor, worm, stenosis of ampulla of Vater, again can sphincter of Oddi stenosis, again can cause mechanical obstruction, which all of them ultimately results in pancreatic damage, pancreatic cellular damage, and activation of pancreatic enzymes. Now come to vascular cause. When there is patient is ischemic, there is less blood supply to the pancreas, like post-CABG patient, ischemic cardiac disease, or polyarteritis nodosa. This patient may develop pancreatitis. And it is well known that following cardiopulmonary capacity, proper blood pressure is not maintained, there is high chance of development of pancreatitis. Now, infections, as we all know, it's a very well-known complication of mumps. Coxsackie B virus is sometimes responsible. Idiopathic pancreatitis is particularly seen southern part of our India, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, and Andhra Pradesh. Maybe in the Karnataka as well. They develop this pancreatitis. The cause is not known. Maybe some food, tapioca like foods or cassava group of foods may be responsible. The exact cause is still not known. Idiopathic. This is mostly is a tropical disease. Tropical disease, and southern part of India is affected. Now let us come to clinical feature of acute disease. You all know upper abdominal pain. Patient presents pain, pain. Acute pancreatitis. Patient presents with pain. Upper abdominal pain or diffuse abdominal pain. Okay. If you examine the abdomen, what will you find? You find or bleeding that may be localized to the epigastric region or be generalized abdominal rigidity or cavity. You may find one phlegmon epigastric mass, which is maybe due to a pancreatic phlegmon or due to cirrhosis. Gray Turner sign is extremely rare, usually seen due to retropancreatic hemorrhage, retroperitoneal hemorrhage, and blood trickles in the through the retroperitoneal space, and there is raised discoloration of the flanks. Cullen's sign is same. That actually the pathophysiology is same. Retroperitoneal hemorrhage and blood ultimately trickles to the retroperitoneal space and come in the umbilical region. This is called Cullen's sign. Here there is raised discoloration of umbilicus and paraumbilical tissues. And we may find phlegmon is actually inflammation resulting in edematous mass of the head of pancreas. My point. Edema, huge edema and intrapancreatic fluid collection resulting in enlargement of the head, and you may perceive the head as a phlegmon. বোঝা গেল?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now come to differential diagnosis. Differential diagnosis you all know. Any upper abdominal pathology. Most common is duodenal perforation, perforated duodenal ulcer. So X-ray is a must. Always remember, you will be interned in 1 year. You have to do any patient with pain abdomen, please do one X-ray. Severe pain abdomen, please do one straight X-ray abdomen. If you find free gas under diaphragm, then it is peptic perforation. If it is not peptic perforation, then other causes may come. But peptic perforation, perforated is a surgical emergency. You have to deal it quickly. So please do any patient with severe upper abdominal pain. First thing is to do is a straight X-ray abdomen. Next, everything else. Now come to acute cholecystitis. Again, it can be confusing. Acute cholecystitis, acute gastritis, acute hepatitis, diverticulitis of transverse colon. These are confusing, but most important differential diagnosis which you must have to rule out is perforated peptic ulcer. Okay. Now coming to complications, and if you know the complications, symptoms and signs of complications will be naturally you can understand. What are the complications? There are local complications like phlegma. As I told you, one question I already answered that head region is huge edematous enlargement of the head region of pancreas, and this inflamed head is called phlegma. There may be necrosis of the pancreas due to pancreatitis. There may be necrosis of the pancreas. There may be pseudocyst formation, ascites, pancreatic ascites, ductal hypertension resulting in ductal disruption. And if this fluid ductal disruption is not contained like pseudocyst, what happens in pseudocyst is there is inflammatory adhesion around the extrapancreatic secretion, resulting in contained cyst. But if this adhesion cannot be formed, inflammatory adhesion cannot be formed, the entire pancreatic juice may spill over the peritoneal cavity, as a result of which there will be pancreatic ascites. Bowel perforation, if necrotic tissue necrosis and this inflammation goes into the bowel, which most commonly in the transverse colon, the left part of the transverse colon, there may be chance of colonic perforation. Sometimes what happens, it erodes or the pancreas erodes the left portion of the varicolic vein, varicolic artery, as a result of which there may be necrosis, ischemic necrosis of the part of the left side of the transverse colon, and as a result of which there may be chance of perforation. Okay. and there are distant pancreatitis is actually a systemic issue. It does not only affect GI system, it does not only affect it is, for due to some unknown reason, there is activation of systemic inflammatory cascades, and there is chance of affection of almost all systems of the body. Most commonly, respiratory system is usually in the left side, and there may be acute respiratory distress syndrome, ARDS. We mostly are feared about ARDS because it is most of the time is not reversible. Now come to CVS, there is hypotension, as there is fluid sequestration. Lot of fluid can be sequestered in the peritoneum. So hypotension is quite common. Pericardial effusion is extremely rare, and DIC, again, pancreatitis, terminal stages of pancreatitis, patient uncontrolled pancreatitis, chance of DIC, disseminated intravascular coagulation, is a feared thing. We are very scared about DIC because chance of, if there is disseminated intravascular coagulation, there is thrombus, there is excessive bleeding, both occur simultaneously. Regulation of coagulation is lost. And renal, when there is hypotension, severe hypotension, it may lead to renal failure. GI hemorrhage and paralytic ideas, I don't know, these are distant complication or local complication, but this can occur. And electrolyte imbalance, most commonly calcium. Sodium potassium disbalance is quite common and almost universally seen, but unique of this pancreatitis is hypocalcemia. Okay, we have to correct this. Now, morphological types. Morphological types of pancreatitis. This is again according to severity. The mildest form of pancreatitis is acute edematous pancreatitis. Here there is only edema, no pancreatic necrosis. Okay, acute edematous pancreatitis. There may be some fat necrosis of the mesenteric and omental fat, but usually there is no necrosis, pancreatic necrosis. Now, peripancreatic necrosis. Here, what happens? Peripancreatic tissues may be necrosed. Widespread necrosis, and there is necrosis of the peripancreatic fat tissue, but there is no obvious pancreatic necrosis here. Next is pancreatic necrosis, but at this initial stage, pancreatic necrosis is a sterile necrosis, acute inflammation without any infection. If you take culture from the pancreatic necrosis tissue, the culture will be negative at this stage. At a later stage, this necrosis may get infected. Okay, at a later stage, this necrosis may get infected, and this is completed by infection. And at this stage, we call it infected pancreatic necrosis. This is a very toxic stage, and acute pancreatic necrosis, most of the time, the death rate is very high. Mortality rate is about 20-25%, maybe 50% at some stages. Later, if infected necrosis is not properly treated, it may lead to pancreatic abscess. The entire pancreatic duct, pancreatic gland may be replaced with necrotic tissue, and these ultimately lead to abscess of that region. Okay, so this morphological type is extremely important. Initially, it is always edematous pancreatitis. If not controlled, gradually, peripancreatic necrosis, pancreatic necrosis, sterile necrosis to infected necrosis, and ultimately lead to abscess formation. Now, come to investigation as serum amylase, serum lipase, estimation, urinary amylase. Remember this one. Urinary amylase is more sensitive and specific than serum amylase, because serum amylase may rise in case of perforated peptic ulcer, sometimes in the acute cholecystitis, duodenal ulcer. Urinary amylase is usually rises only in case of acute pancreatitis. Serum amylase level more than 1000 units is not seen in any other disease other than pancreatitis. So If the amylase level is more than 1000 Somium unit, always remember it is pancreatitis. It cannot be anything else. Serum lipase, it is more specific than amylase. But problem of lipase, it takes time to rise, maybe 72 hours. Initially, only amylase is raised, then gradually and gradually, with time, lipase will also be raised. Urinary albumin creatinine ratio is a complicated test. We do not perform this routinely, but if they are also very specific. Hypoglycemia and hypocalcemia, these you have to measure. No, does not have much diagnostic role. The only laboratory investigation which have diagnostic role is serum amylase, serum lipase, and maybe urinary amylase. That is also not routinely measured. We don't measure urinary amylase very routinely. Come to radiological investigations. These are very important. You have to do abdominal X-ray in all cases, suspected cases of upper abdominal pain. Be it pancreatitis, even if you suspect it clinically pancreatitis, even if you suspect it ruptured peptic ulcer disease, you have to do state X-ray abdomen in erect posture. If you get free gas, it is perforation. But if you may not get free gas in all cases of perforation. You may not get free gas in cases of pancreatitis. You may get sentinel loop. What is sentinel loop of intestine? Sentinel sentinel loop is a loop of jejunum as well as transverse colon, which lies conglomerated loop of bowel. That means black shadow found in the upper abdomen. This is called sentinel loop. Actually, the jejunum and transverse colon is located upper loop of jejunum and transverse colon. This is due to localized hypoperistalsis. Localized hypoperistalsis. Sentinel loop usually localized hypoperistalsis এর জন্য হয় portion of jejunum and transverse colon dilated jejunum and dilated transverse colon you may find in state X-ray abdomen in the left upper abdomen. This is called sentinel loop. This is a classical finding of acute pancreatitis. Okay. Now come to colon cutoff sign. The cecum, ascending colon, and proximal transverse colon is dilated, but there is no gas shadow thereafter. This is again due to edematous enlargement of the pancreas. That means it compresses the transverse colon midway in the transverse colon. So the proximal portion of the transverse colon, ascending colon is dilated, but thereafter no gas shadow. This is called colon cutoff sign. I could not capture pictures from Google, but next class, if possible, I will take some pictures and show you how they look like. Once you see, you will not forget. The colon cutoff sign is again a classical picture in the X-ray. Chest X-ray is a mandatory because left-sided pleural effusion is very common, and you have to detect. You have to see whether there is pleural effusion or not. Ultrasonography, minor amount of pleural effusion are detected first by ultrasonography. Additionally, ultrasound can detect gallstones. Number one. Number two, pancreatic edema it can understand. Pancreatic ductal anatomy it can understand. If pancreatic intrapancreatic calculi is formed or calcification is formed, it can also detect. Most important thing, it can detect gallstones because the etiology, if you find gallstones along with pancreatitis, that means you are treating with milder form of pancreatitis or gallstone pancreatitis. Here, surgical management is very important. So USG is always mandatory. CT scan wherever possible. Almost every centers now having facility of CT scan. You have to perform, but perform CT little later. That means first day if you perform CT scan, you may not be able to pick up necrosis. what happens, what we want to see with CT scan, if we do contrast enhanced CT scan, we very commonly see there is necrosis. We can pick up necrosis. Ideally, if it is edematous pancreatitis or there is no necrosis, then there will be universal uptake of dye. So, if there is necrosis, that area will not take up any dye. IV contrast we are using dye with during CT scan, and that dye is not taken up if there is necrosis. But if there is no necrosis, the dye will be taken up. That means if the entire pancreas is taking up dye, if we are dealing with a milder form of pancreatitis, that is edematous pancreatitis. If some part of the pancreas is not taking up dye, that means we are dealing with necrosis. And here comes question of doing CT guided FNAC. I have not written this. CT guided FNAC. FNAC from the necrotic area and culture these necrotic areas. You have to culture these necrotic areas to know whether this is infected pancreatic necrosis or non-infected or sterile pancreatic necrosis. If it is sterile necrotic pancreatitis, if it is infected necrosis, then there is role of antibiotics. But usually, whenever we find pancreatic necrosis, we start antibiotics as if it will develop infected pancreatic necrosis in near future. So we start antibiotics. We don't wait for this necrosis to become infected. CT guided FNAC is not everywhere available. Wherever available, it can be performed, or even if you don't perform, you start using antibiotics. There is not much role of MRCP in case of acute pancreatitis. Okay. Now come to prognosis. Still, Ranson's criteria is still followed. Still today it is followed. It long back, maybe 50, 60 years back, it was postulated, and still it is followed. Ranson's criteria actually at the time of admission, 5 things we check: age, SGOT, LDH level, blood glucose level, and WBC count. The mnemonic is GLAWS, GLAWS. Okay, GLAWS. Age more than 55 for Boston pancreatitis, alcoholic pancreatitis, and more than 60 for alcoholic pancreatitis. SGOT more than 250. Age more than 50. Glucose more than 200. And WBC count more than 15,000 in case of Boston pancreatitis, and more than 6,000 in case of alcoholic. And if be checked after 48 hours of admission. Okay, there is fall of hematocrit value. If it is more than fall, if there is more than 10% fall of hematocrit value, it is considered to be positive. Rise of blood urea nitrogen, again very important. Rise of blood urea nitrogen more than 5 milligram per deciliter. If the blood urea nitrogen is raised, then it is considered as positive. Fluid sequestration, more than 6 liters of fluid sequestration, if it is there, we consider it to be positive. PO2, if it is less than 60, then we consider it positive. Blood calcium level, if less than 8 milligram per deciliter, we consider it positive. And base deficit more than 4, if present, then also we consider positive. Okay, 4 milliequivalent. That means more acidosis, we consider it positive. Okay, these are the criteria, is very important. If 1 to 3 criteria are present, then mortality is almost zero, less than 5%. If 3, 4 criteria are present, then mortality is around 15%. If 7, 8 criteria are present, mortality is more than 50%. So this is the importance of doing checking Ranson's criteria. We always still follow Ranson's criteria. There are other modern criteria like Apache 2 score, WHO score, this Glasgow score. These are difficult to remember, but one modern score is very simple to remember, and we widely follow this with the BICEP scoring system. Try to follow this BICEP scoring system. This is a very important and very easy to remember thing. B stands for blood urea nitrogen. If it is more than 8.9 or 9 millimole per liter, it is considered as positive. I stands for impaired mental status. You can easily check it clinically. Features of SIRS. S stands for SIRS. SIRS, what are the criteria? কেউ বলতে পারবে? Very important. SIRS এর কতগুলো criteria? কেউ একজন বল? Temperature, pulse rate, respiratory rate, আর হচ্ছে টেম্পারেচার গেল, পালস রেট গেল, রেসপিরেটরি রেট গেল, আর এটা কি আছে? এটা কি মনে করো? টেম্পারেচার লেস দ্যান 36 হলে বা মোর দ্যান 38 ডিগ্রি সেন্টিগ্রেড হলে, ঠিক আছে? পালস রেট মোর দ্যান 90, রেসপিরেটরি রেট মোর দ্যান 20, আর এটা কি একটু মনে পড়ছে না, মনে পড়ে যাবে। হ্যাঁ, PO2 CO2 না, না CO2 নয় মনে হচ্ছে, আরো সিম্পল জিনিস চারটে। টেম্পারেচার টেম্পারেচার তো বললাম, টেম্পারেচার, রেসপিরেটরি রেট, পালস রেট, আর একটা PO2 PO2 less than 6. যাই হোক, the two of the criteria are present, we consider the patient is in SIR. ঠিক আছে, চারটে ক্রাইটেরিয়া পজিটিভ, চারটে ক্রাইটেরিয়া আছে, চারটের মধ্যে যদি দুটো পজিটিভ থাকে, we consider patient is in SIRS. Okay. Now age more than 60 is considered positive, and P again pleural effusion, particularly left sided. If it is present, then P score is positive. Bicep scoring more than 3 score considered moderate. Okay. 1 score less mortality, highest score highest mortality. Just like that. This is a very simple scoring system. We follow this nowadays. We follow this bicep scoring system. Okay. Now management of acute pancreatitis. Again, you cannot do many things, too many things. Just remember nasogastric tube, role of nasogastric. Nowadays, if patient does not vomit, we do not put nasogastric tube. Nasogastric tube, if the patient vomit, is used only if the patient is vomiting. Okay. Intravenous fluid, it is mainly used as there is lot of extra this pancreatitis increases vascular permeability, lot of extravascular transport of fluids and electrolytes. So you have to give fluid. What fluid? What particular fluid you have to give? Remember, there is hyperglycemia most of the time. So glucose, no need of any glucose. Number one. Number two, there is acidosis. There is loss of huge amount of loss of this bicarbonate and chloride, all these things. So there will be acidosis. We have to add bicarbonate to the fluid, intravenous circulation. So for that, Ringer lactate is the ideal solution. Lactate is converted in the body as bicarbonate. Okay, lactate is converted to bicarbonate within the body. So Ringer lactate usually first 2-3 bottles at it, then gradually you taper the dose according to the situation. Okay. Now analgesics. Remember, morphine is not used. Why? Initially we start with paracetamol and simple analgesics, then we gradually step up. But morphine we do not use because if morphine is notorious for constricting protein, and as a result of which there will be exacerbation of pancreatitis. Pethidine can be used. Pethidine does not have much effect on spleen protein, but morphine is not. Calcium correction is again important. Most of the time,
sir, morphine টা
মরফিন
মরফিনটা কেন
স্ফিংটার অফ ওডি কনস্ট্রিকশন করে, স্ফিংটার অফ ওডি কনস্ট্রিকশন করে মরফিন, ঠিক আছে, সেই জন্য মরফিন ইউজ করা হয় না। ইলেকট্রোলাইট কারেকশনের মধ্যে মোস্টলি উই আর bothered about calcium, because normally if you give ringal lactate, sodium and potassium mostly corrected, but calcium is not corrected. So additional calcium gluconate injection you have to give when there is hypocalcemia. ঠিক আছে? Now come to nutrition. Whenever possible, if the GI tract is functioning, you give fluid and liquid diet through oral route. Because most of the time, in case of severe acute pancreatitis, if it is persisting for more than weeks, GI tract may not be functioning. In that case, you have to arrange for total parenteral nutrition. But remember, enteral route is the best route for nutrition. Whenever possible, if the patient can tolerate even smallest amount of liquid diet, allow that. High protein liquids you allow orally. Maybe partial parenteral nutrition is required, but total parenteral nutrition we try to avoid, because total parenteral nutrition alters the gut flora as well. There is chance of more intestinal infections. So we আচ্ছা, সার্জিক্যাল ম্যানেজমেন্টের মধ্যে লাভাজ একটা বললাম, নেক্রোসেক্টমি ইজ ইম্পর্টেন্ট যখন প্যানক্রিয়াটিক নেক্রোসিস ইজ পারসিস্টিং and in spite of antibiotic it is not responding, that pancreatic necrotic tissue is to be removed surgically. মনে রাখতে হবে প্যানক্রিয়াটিক নেক্রোসিস যে তুলে নিলাম, that part of pancreas আমরা রিমুভ করে দিলাম, ফার্দার কোনো প্যানক্রিয়াস নেক্রোসিস হবে না এমন তো নয়। So we keep some drainage in that region, and this may be repeatedly washed, and with guidance of laparoscopy, with guidance of some scope, we may take out necrotic tissue in the future. ঠিক আছে? যে পার্টটা প্যানক্রিয়াটিক নেক্রোসিস হয়েছে সেখানে আমরা হোয়াইট বোর্ড ড্রেন দিয়ে রাখবো, সেই ড্রেন দিয়ে we go endoscopically and take out all the necrotic tissues in at a later time, 48 hours, 72 hours. When the patient is stable, we can do that. We can do that in the bedside as well. Okay. So thumb drainage is very, very important. These are advanced procedures, but can be performed even if it is not performed in Bahrampur. It can be performed in Kolkata Medical Colleges. We would perform some rare cases. Perform necrosis. This is for today. Next class, we will deal with chronic pancreatitis and pancreatic neoplasms. Pseudosis, chronic pancreatitis, and pancreatic neoplasms. আমার মনে হয় আজকে এটাই সাফিসিয়েন্ট, এর বেশি বললে আর কিছু থাকবে না, মনেও থাকবে না। এইটুকু মনে রাখ, প্যানক্রিয়াস ইজ ভেরি ইম্পর্টেন্ট এন্ড ভেরি ইন্টারেস্টিং অ্যাজ ওয়েল। ঠিক আছে, আমি এই ছবিগুলো যদি পারি তো ডাউনলোড করে এর মধ্যে স্লাইডে দিয়ে রাখবো। মঙ্গলবার বা বুধবার তোদের কবে ছবিতে আমাকে জানিয়ে দিবি, বাই রোববার। ঠিক আছে
স্যার, ওই এক্স-রে ছবিগুলো একটু দেখালে ভালো হতো, পেন্টালাইন লুপ সাইন আর কোলন পার্থক সাইন
নিয়ে নেবো। ডাউনলোড করে একটু টাইম লাগবে আর কি।
স্যার সিএবিজি অ্যাকিউট প্যানক্রিয়াটাইটিস কি করে কজ করে?
সিএবিজি, পোস্ট সিএবিজি পেশেন্ট there is hypotension, cardiopulmonary bypass হয়ে hypotension, severe hypotension হয়ে ischemic damage to the pancreas। ঠিক আছে,
ওকে স্যার।
ঠিক আছে, থ্যাংক ইউ। লিভ করি তাহলে।
হ্যাঁ স্যার।
Thank you.